Do you know the story of Daniel in the lion's den? If you don't know the story, then come and join me. Hi everyone, my name is Dulce, and we're going to be talking about Daniel. Do you know who Daniel is? Daniel was a boy who was known for his bravery. We're going to be reading a story that will tell us what made him so brave. Daniel was a boy who lived in the city of Jerusalem. One day, an army came to capture Daniel and everyone who lived in Jerusalem. They took them to a faraway land and made them work for their king. How do you think that made Daniel feel? I think that Daniel looked scared and surprised at what was happening. Daniel was called to work in the royal palace. He worked very hard at everything he had to do. Daniel had been taught at home all about God, and he prayed to God 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night. He knew that it was God helping him do everything he had to do. Many years passed, and Daniel continued to work in the royal palace. He was always honest and wise in what he did. Do you know what it means to be wise? Being wise means that he was smart in all the choices that he made. The king of the palace, King Darius, grew to love Daniel. He put Daniel in charge of his kingdom, and Daniel never made any mistakes. Do you know why? Daniel didn't make any mistakes because he prayed to God 3 times a day and God helped him. Other men working for the king were jealous of Daniel. They didn't want him to rule over them, so they tried to catch him doing something wrong. Do you think they were able to catch Daniel doing something wrong? Of course not, because God was helping Daniel. Daniel knew that his wisdom came from God, and he prayed faithfully to God how many times? 3 times a day. The bad men knew they would have to trap Daniel, so they told the king to make a law that for 30 days no one can ask anyone but him for help. Anyone who breaks the law will be thrown into the lion's den. The king thought this was a wonderful idea, but he didn't know that the men were trying to trap Daniel. Daniel heard about the new law, but he still went to his room to pray and to ask God to help him to do what was right. There's Daniel praying. When the sneaky men saw Daniel praying, they ran to the king and said, "Daniel has been praying to his God instead of asking you for help. He must be thrown into the lion's den." How sad the king was. He didn't want to hurt Daniel because he loved Daniel. He tried for a long time to think of a way to save Daniel, but he couldn't change the law. Finally, the king ordered Daniel to be thrown into the lion's den with the very hungry and roaring lions. he called to Daniel, "Your God whom you pray to will save you." Then the king walked back into the palace. He was so upset he couldn't eat and he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking of Daniel trapped with all of those fierce and hungry lions. Early the next morning, the king ran to the den and shouted, "Daniel, has your God saved you?" Do you think that God saved Daniel? Daniel answered, "God sent an angel to close the lions' mouths. They have not hurt me." How happy the king was! He commanded that Daniel be taken out of the den and that the bad men be thrown in there instead. Then the king made a new law that everyone in his kingdom should pray to Daniel's God because he saved Daniel from the terrible lions. 3 times every day, Daniel prayed to God, morning, noon, and night. And God gave him the courage and wisdom to do what was right. And that is the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Now, just like Daniel, God can give you everything you need to do what is right, especially when times are scary. God will give you the strength if you ask him to. Do you dare to be a Daniel? If so, join me in making a lion to remind us that no matter how scary a situation can be, just like being trapped in a den with lions, God will get us through the situation if we ask him to. To make the lions, you'll need paint, yellow, and orange. You'll also need a cupcake liner or simply a white piece of paper. You'll also need a fork, a paintbrush, or you can also use a Q-tip. But if you really want to have some fun, you can simply use your fingertips. So let's get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my cupcake liner down and I'm going to get my paint. See? So I'll just simply paint the inside yellow with my paintbrush. And then to make the lion's mane, you're going to dip your fork into some paint. And you're simply going to start at the center and out. Dip it again, start at the center and out. And that's how you make the lion's mane. Center out. Center out. Center out. And we'll let that dry. And once it's dry, we'll add the eyes and then the mouth and the nose. So if you don't have a cupcake liner, you can simply use a white sheet of paper. You can get something with a flat circular bottom. And you just dip it in the pan, you swirl it around, and you're simply going to get the bottom with paint. And we'll just stamp it on here. You can always just paint the inside. And you can simply just dip the fork in paint again, start at the center and swipe out. Center. And then once it's dry, you can add the details of the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. And you'll have your lion. Okay everyone, now that my lion is dry, I'm going to be adding the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. You can do that simply with a marker or with a pen. Whatever you choose to do is fine. Here are the eyes, and here is the nose. And there you have it. Here's the lion that's on the muffin liner, and here's the lion on the paper. Alrighty, so this concludes our time together as we have learned about Daniel in the lion's den and how to make your own lion to remind us to be brave, even though things can be as scary as lions seem at times. But if we ask God for help, He will help us and He will make us brave. Hope you enjoyed your time. See you next time.